Due to the changes in the format of the Miss America competition, the swimsuit competition in today's Kenosha pageant will be replaced by the hoodie competition. And the winner is Ralph Nudi.
Hello and welcome to Get Real with Ralph, where we have an opportunity every single week to talk about the issues of the day that are affecting us nationally, globally, locally, and of course right here in Kenosha County. Today I have a very special guest, Maria Salerno, who is the current Miss Kenosha. Hi Maria, how are you?
Hi Ralph, I'm good, how are you?
Good, good. Maria is going to be giving her crown away, not like before this episode, but giving her crown away for real to the new Miss Kenosha on February 8th. And I thought that this would be a good time to have her in and talk about her experience holding that crown for a year, the experience of competing. And after that, we're going to discuss some other things that are going on in our world. So let's get started and let's get real. So Maria, how are you?
I'm doing well, Ralph. How are you?
Good, good.
Good.
So you grew up in Bristol?
Well, I grew up in Kenosha.
Okay.
So we lived in the old Whitecaps neighborhood, so
All right.
loyal to Kenosha.
Absolutely.
And then we moved out to the county when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So I'm a county kid now, so hopefully that won't cause too much discrepancy with all our city Kenosha people.
Oh, I think it'll be just fine. It'll be just fine.
Good.
And so you went to Central, then?
Yes,
Kenosha
I
Central?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
so I started when I was in Kenosha. I actually went to Armitage, so
Oh, wow.
throwback to the Armitage days.
I used to do summer theater workshops at Armitage when I was in middle school, junior high. Back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They had a really great theater program.
They
I
did.
remember. They got us all involved at such a really young age, so that was really good. So I went for a year there, and then by that time we were moving out to the county, so I went to Brighton Elementary School, right near Brightondale, the golf course.
Sure.
And then I went to Westosha Central for high school for all 4 years, and then now I'm at Carthage finishing my degree there. So Kenosha through and through, really.
Through and through. So
Yeah.
what year are you at Carthage?
I'm a senior. I'm actually graduating in like 10 days, which is crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So you got a lot going on, like right now at this point in your life. You're
absolutely.
finishing college. You're finishing your year as Miss Kenosha.
Yeah, so I graduate on January 31st is like the official day that classes end, and then February 9th I give up the crown. So it's all happening within 10 days
Wow.
of each other. Yeah, so
Wow.
it's a very jam-packed first month or so of 2019, which I love. So
what was your childhood like growing up in Kenosha County?
I have nothing but fond memories of my childhood here, which is great. So I think I got like that city experience growing up, and when I was living in Whitecaps, we had all a bunch of kids my age on our street. So I always had this group of friends growing up that we could just like pop over in each other's houses and hang out and just, do crazy things with each other. So it was great. And then when I moved out to the county, it was a little bit of a transition for me because going from that suburban lifestyle to a very rural lifestyle, it was difficult. But I have...
So you weren't in a subdivision out there, you're actually on a rural road?
So we're in a subdivision technically, but we're required to have like 6 acres of land
Gotcha.
in the neighborhood. So there's like 10 houses in our neighborhood.
So it's a little longer walk, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there weren't a lot of kids in the neighborhood growing up. So I relied a lot on like my school friends especially, but it really gave me a chance to branch out at such a young age. When you move, and that's such a formative time in your life, when you move at that point and you have to like get new friends and experience something new and get out of your comfort zone, it really helps you learn about yourself even when you're like 8, 9, 10 years old. So I think it really helped me grow into the person that I am today. But I loved how quiet and rural Brighton is. And just getting out to go outside and run around whenever I wanted to and not having to worry about like traffic or anything like that. And we had deer like come up to our yard all the time. So it was just really a neat place to grow up as a kid. So
Now, you had two siblings?
I have three actually.
Three? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so Nick is older. He is 22, and then it's me. Then I have a younger sister, Victoria. She's 19, studying biology at UW La Crosse. And then Alex, I can't call him little because he's like 6'2" right
Sure.
now. Yeah, he's the tallest in our family. But he is 17, and he is finishing his time up at Westosha Central.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so he's a senior over there.
Sports a big part of your family growing up?
Huge
Big part of your
part.
life? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you played sports growing up?
Yes, yeah, I played a variety of sports actually. I was very much a tomboy growing up actually. I played anything from softball, basketball, volleyball. I did 1 year of cheerleading, so we'll count it as a sport.
Sure, sure.
Track, I ran track,
What was your event?
the 800.
800. Oh, so you like distance.
I don't like distance actually, but we had so many sprinters at Brighton, and they needed somebody to run the 800, and my coach was like, he asked me, but it was not really an ask. It was like,
You're running the 800.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
son
yeah.
ran the 800 in middle school. I liked it. It was, I liked the longevity.
I think it's like, it's not quite the mile. It's not quite a sprint. So it's kind of like this weird in between that you have to really kind of time out.
Yeah.
And know when you're going to make your move and whatnot. But at our county meet, I took first. So that was really cool. Yeah. And then my coach was really disappointed when I didn't go on a run track.
Do you still run?
No, I don't. I hate running, actually. I really hate running.
You sound exactly like my son. He hates running too, but he did
Really?
it.
But he did it. Yeah, exactly.
And he was a wrestler, and you had to run if you wanted to.
Yeah.
That's the best endurance training there is. I really believe that.
No, I believe it too, and
It's-
I wish I liked running more because I think it has such a benefit for our health. But I just can't do it.
I think it's good for your mind.
Yeah.
Running, not on a treadmill. I'm getting
No,
out.
I can't do a treadmill.
Getting out, putting some shoes on, either putting some headphones on or sometimes not.
Yeah.
And it's an experience where you're able to clear your mind that's different than, it's like working out and meditating at the same time almost.
Yeah, it is. One of the cool things about living out in the county is we have so many like little parks and whatnot. And one of the parks, the Silver Lake one, right by the Fox River out in Silver Lake, and they have these great running trails over there, and it's just so peaceful to go back there and just disconnect for a while, and have time like by yourself or with somebody else quietly running. It's very peaceful, very relaxing, like that meditation that you were talking about.
It helps you get in the zone.
Yeah,
That's what I
and
call it.
focus and
So-
recenter yourself. Yeah.
Ultimately, you settled on and played mostly tennis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually, I was a softball player. That was my big sport growing up.
Okay.
Then I played for a long time. And so when I went to high school, I knew that I was going to try out for the softball team, but I wanted a fall sport to keep me active and in shape while I wasn't in softball season. And so I thought I was going to do swimming because I had also taken swimming lessons for a while, and I was a decent swimmer for my height. I mean, I'm short for swimmers. But I thought I was going to be a swimmer, and then my grandpa actually plays tennis. He's in his mid to late 70s, and he still plays tennis 3 times a week. And so he like kind of planted the seed in my mind. And so when I was a freshman, I was like, maybe I'll try tennis for a year, you know? So I walked on the court freshman year. I had never picked up a tennis racket in my life.
Wow.
And I hit it like a baseball bat because that's what I was known to do. And so I was hitting balls over the fence and into other courts. And I was a work in progress. But the tennis coaches at Westosha, Paul and Pat Brings, they are a married couple in their seniors, so they drive from Oak Creek all the way down to Westosha. They started the program.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, they invest so much time into their athletes, which I think is something that's so unique nowadays. They don't care about your skill level. They just care that you're improving year after year. They want you to be a better athlete, but more importantly, like a better person. And so I really thrived under that kind of coaching. And so I went to summer programs, and I never took any lessons, any private lessons. I just did like their free camps, their open hitting sessions in the summertime, etc. And then I made varsity my sophomore year, which was crazy. Played on the varsity team until I was a senior, almost went to state a couple times. So almost being the key word.
Sure.
And then I was in contact with Brady Lindsley over at Carthage to play tennis, and he convinced me to come out and play for them. And I was really bad my freshman year because I had never had that private lesson experience. And a lot of these girls have been playing since they were like
First grade.
Exactly.
Private lessons since
they
first
could
grade.
walk.
Yeah.
Right. So I was definitely behind, but I just put a lot of work in, and I was grateful, especially to have a lot of great assistant coaches that were willing to put a lot of time in with me on and off the court, and just work on even just like different workouts that we could do or get private hitting in. And so I was really lucky to have that great support system, and I ended up making the varsity team my junior and senior years. And
Well, you put in the work, though.
I had a lot of people along the way to help me as well. But it was definitely a struggle because I was at kind of a disadvantage. And I was just really grateful to have such a great support system along the way that was really willing to help me out and get all that extra time and allow me to have the opportunity to work hard in the first place.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But don't diminish the fact that you put in the work.
Thank you.
Because there are so many youth out there that have all the advantages. They have the private coaches and everything. And if they don't want it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Mindset is so important, and it says a lot about you that you highlighted the people that helped you and how grateful you are. It says a lot about your work ethic as a person too.
I appreciate it.
And so I'm not saying don't be grateful, and that's awesome that you are. But don't diminish the fact that those people are probably grateful that they had a student, that they had an athlete who was willing to be coachable and listen. I can tell you, as someone who has been involved on both sides, as an athlete and in coaching, that you're always grateful when you have that one or two people that might not have had all the natural talents to start with, might not have had the experience, but listen and work and take you to that next level. And that will do so much more for you than all the advantages that the other people had that they didn't take advantage of. And I truly mean that. I'm sure that probably translated somewhere into the Miss Kenosha pageant, and we'll definitely get there.
Yeah.
Because you had told me before we interviewed, somewhere along the line, that you also started piano a little later than most, correct? When did you start playing piano? What age?
When I was in third grade.
Third grade, okay.
Yeah.
So you started piano in third grade, and of course piano was your talent piece that you did for the scholarship pageant last year. So tell me about your experience playing piano. Started in third grade.
Yeah, I did. So growing up in my house, my parents really wanted us to be well-rounded kids. So we had a couple of rules just in our house, and we had to maintain straight A's. We had to...
Straight A's.
Yes.
What happened if you got a B?
They were understanding about it, yeah, as long as you tried your best.
So they set the expectation, but then they didn't completely like crush your life when you missed it by a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Do you think that you would have... So you got a few B's in high school?
Yeah, I did. And in college as well.
If their expectations were that you at least get B's, do you think that you have ended up getting C's? Do you think that higher expectation meant that...
No, I think what really was around the expectation was that we put in as much effort as possible, and that we knew that school was our job.
But what I'm saying is, if the expectations would have been lower, do you think you would have performed as well? Do you think those high expectations helped?
Yeah, I think they helped, but I also think that naturally I'm a person who likes I'm a high achiever. I'm an overachiever.
You want to crush it.
So, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I was going to do it regardless.
Okay.
But it certainly helped to have those guidelines.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so we had to maintain a high GPA, but we also had to play an instrument and be in a school play and be an athlete. So
wow.
We were, yeah. So
they were really pushing to be completely well-rounded.
Exactly. Yeah. So the instrument, they started us in piano, and then when you get to band in like 5th grade, you get to kind of pick an instrument.
Right.
They were like, okay, you can pick an instrument.
But now you've already had a bass.
Yeah, you have your bass music.
Yeah.
So that's how I started in piano, and then I eventually picked up trumpet and guitar along the way.
Do you still play?
I don't, unfortunately. I had a really great teacher for guitar and piano, actually. I don't know if you remember Dave Nevias. He was a teacher out at Westosha, and his wife taught at Union Grove, but they were killed in a motorcycle accident when I was a freshman in high school, and he was my guitar teacher and my piano teacher, and so that was...
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so that was a really tragic moment. It was very sudden, kind of a tragic moment for me, and I have not played guitar since, but it's on my bucket list to pick it up again and get back at it. But I stuck with piano, obviously, and so when I was picking my talent for Miss Kenosha, I thought about singing, but I knew that piano was really where I was passionate in music, and it was just a no-brainer, really. So that's how I ended up picking the talent.
What do you play mostly?
Classical. Chopin.
Chopin.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. He by far is my favorite composer. So yeah, I primarily play his works.
I gotta write Chopin down here.
You should.
Yeah, well, I mean, I listen to Chopin, but they just made me think of an idea, so I'm gonna put it here.
Oh, okay. I love new ideas.
So you play piano in the competition. What piece did you play?
I don't remember what I played for Miss Kenosha, actually, which sounds really bad.
No, it doesn't.
But I've been so focused on my Miss Wisconsin piece that I kind of pushed it to this. Oh, it was a nocturne, I think. And it was by Chopin, I believe. I'll find the title later on. But my
Awesome.
Miss Wisconsin piece was the one that I have been focusing on, obviously, for months now, and so I kind of pushed everything to the side.
And which piece was that?
It was Malagueña.
And we're definitely going to get to the Miss Wisconsin piece because I have questions about
Yes.
all of that.
I would love to answer your questions.
And we're going to jump on that. When did you start doing pageants?
When I started Miss Kenosha.
That was your first pageant?
So I ran for Miss Kenosha when Katie won.
Okay.
2 years ago. That was my first one, and I needed scholarship money to stay at Carthage. And Joya had told me about the pageant, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
Love Joy, isn't she amazing?
She's truly the best.
She came in here on, I think, our second or third episode.
Yes.
And funny story with her mom and I were in a play together when I was in junior high, and her mom was probably early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you guys in the play together?
We were in the Miss Kenosha Scholarship group used to put on a play every year as a fundraiser.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and there is a school teacher at McKinley Elementary named Lou Cristiano, and I was a student at McKinley Junior High at the time, singing in choir.
Okay.
And we walked over to McKinley Elementary to sing for the elementary kids to get them to sign up for choir.
Cool.
And I had a solo.
Yeah.
And after my solo, this teacher comes up to me, this 6th grade teacher, and says, how would you like to be in a play? And I was like, yes, heck yeah, I've never been in a play before.
Yeah.
So this is before cell phones and emails and faxes and all that. He writes his phone number down on a piece of notebook paper, folds it up, says, give this to your mom and dad. This is my home phone number, have them call me. So I brought it home, and my mom and dad called Lou, and I showed up at the auditions for Gypsy. I don't know if you've ever heard of Gypsy.
I haven't.
Gypsy was a Broadway musical about the life of Gypsy Rose Lee, who is a famous stripper.
Oh, I have heard of her. Yes.
And Gypsy's a real story.
Yeah.
It's a very cool story. It starts out, she was actually a child actress during the days of vaudeville. You know what vaudeville is?
Yeah.
And so she was the big sister of the child star, actually. The child star was a girl, Baby June. And I remember that a Kenosha girl played Baby June, Corey Andreoli, who is still a Kenosha girl. And I can't remember who played her sister Rose in the early part, but then Rose grows up and vaudeville fades away, and Rose becomes the famous stripper, Gypsy Rose Lee. And Joya's mom played the stripper.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a wild story.
It was a wild play.
Oh, I bet.
And we had a really good cast of a lot of well-known Kenosha people from Kenosha families.
Sure.
Maria Terabasi was a choreographer at the time in New York City, and Lou flew her in to do the choreography. And she ended up playing a part because one of the actresses had to quit because her husband was threatening to kill her.
Oh,
it was lively.
My God.
It was such a lively, crazy
Never a dull
story.
moment.
Never a dull moment. And I was oblivious. I was just...
You were in 6th grade,
I was
right?
a junior. Yeah, I was in 7th grade. I was a junior high kid, maybe 7th, 8th grade, somewhere around there. And I was a newsboy. And so it was, and the part was almost like, every time you see the movie Newsies, I feel like that like they took the newsboy character from Gypsy and turned it into an entire movie. Because it was,
funny.
I was basically a newsie.
Yeah.
And we had to come out there and we had to sing the song, and I can still, and I'm not doing it, but I can do the choreography still. I can still remember the choreographer yelling 2, 3, 4, like in the gap of the song. So if I hear the song, even if like I put show tunes on, I know that sounds really crazy at my house. My kids are listening, and it was extra, extra. Hey, look at the headlines. Historical news is being made. 2, 3, 4, and so like every time I hear that song, I think 2, 3, 4, and like the next move.
Right.
To this day, because it's the first time I ever did any sort of dancing. I can't dance for crap. I've got 2 left feet, but I can do a chorus line. You know, if you beat it into my head enough times, I could probably still maybe pull it off.
I think for your next episode, we should recreate your choreography and make you do it. I just think that we should do that. I think the people need to see it.
You do, huh?
Yeah, I do.
Newspaper bag and everything?
Yeah, exactly. Did you have one of the newsies?
Yeah, we had the hats on, and in the beginning we're all yelling extra, extra, read all about it, and we're walking around with newspapers, and then the song starts and everybody runs to their place.
Yep.
And then you have the newspapers, and it was something like, here's the paper, extra, extra. Hey, look at the headlines. Historical news is being made. 2, 3, 4, extra, extra. We're drawing a red line. Yeah, we just
That's it.
do the whole thing. Yeah, I already did it. Now we don't have to. Now we don't have to do that.
I think we should still do it, but I'll let you off the hook for this time.
So that was the bit, and Joya's mom was in it.
Yeah.
Joya's aunt Monica Del
Yes.
Conte was in it, and we had a great time. And then Joy had already been Miss Kenosha. She was the previous Miss Kenosha at this point in time.
Okay.
And of course, Joya came along in 2000 and won it and won Miss Wisconsin.
Yep.
And so that was like a step up for Kenosha. Now we had somebody win Miss Wisconsin, and Laura came along and won Miss America a few years after that.
Right.
And so it's cool to see something that's so traditional still alive.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, like, toward the closing segment. We've got a couple of serious subjects that we're going to transition to. So the Gillette commercial that has stirred up all this controversy in the country. And you didn't see the commercial before today, right?
Correct.
I saw all the controversy, and I have to be honest, I cut through the clutter and decided not to really listen too much. I mean, I know that there's people that are angry because they find it insulting to men, and there's people angry on the left because they think that men are overbearing, and I didn't want to listen to too many people's opinions. I wanted to actually watch it first. And I watched it once last night, and I watched it once now today with you. So seeing it for the first time, what's your gut reaction to the commercial itself?
I think the underlying message is something that's really good. And I think that has been taken a little bit out of context. I think, when they say in the commercial, men need to hold other men accountable for their actions, especially in this era where we're seeing a lot of like sexual assault and sexual harassment allegations come to light. I think that's important. We do have to have other men hold each other accountable. I think that's really important. And I can see why people might be angry about it, of course. And I think it's important that we understand why people are angry about it, but I also think I see what Gillette was getting at. I see the underlying message that they were trying to get at, and I think it's a positive one that they were trying to implement with this commercial.
I don't see anything wrong with reminding people that doing the right thing is always the choice you should make. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Gillette going beyond that and saying men are bad. Mm-hmm. I didn't even see Gillette going and saying masculinity is bad. I think that people who have supported that commercial have gone off on a tangent, on a man-bashing tangent. Mm-hmm. If you look at the actual commercial itself and the content of it, I don't really see man-bashing going on there.
Right, I think it's more of like a do the right thing, which is something that's important, and that's something that should always be
do the right thing.
Yeah.
So now what's happened is that people have picked up this commercial and started to use it as a man-bashing hammer, and that's caused this reaction from people on the right to run to the rescue of men and say, you're man-bashing. And that's all I heard, and I said, I got to watch the actual commercial first and get my own opinion of it. And honestly, as a person who has been more right of center my whole life, and I have been, I've always said that people make a industry of being offended, and this time it's the right that's making that is being professionally offended. Yeah. Like it's like your profession to be offended, because as a man, as a father, I'm not offended by saying, hey, those of us who are doing the right thing need to remind other people to do the right thing. Let's take man or woman out of it. We should be reminding the people around us that it's always better to do the right thing.
Right. Aside from whatever.
Aside from that.
Gender. Yeah.
And we all have a tendency to sometimes have this knee-jerk reaction to do something that isn't the right thing. Mm-hmm. And then you stop and you think, and that kind of tells you stop and think.
Right.
That being said, this narrative that masculinity is toxic is a terrible, terrible narrative. I don't believe there's such a thing as toxic masculinity. I think here's what's happening, all right? And I took some statistics down.
Okay.
And this is interesting, okay? 25% of all children today being raised without fathers, okay? 77% of all of our teachers are women, my wife included, all right? And 70% of all mothers, single, married, partnered, whatever, are working full-time. The problem isn't masculinity or this made-up term toxic masculinity. The problem is lack of fathers, lack of male influence, and lack of time to even raise our own children in some cases.
Sure.
And you were brought up, you were fortunate enough to be brought up in a two-parent household where your mom stayed home and was there with you.
Yeah, so because of Nick's situation, he has cerebral palsy, he can't walk and he can't talk.
Now Nick is your brother,
He
just
is.
for everybody else, okay?
Yes, he's my older brother, and he's been the center of my years, Miss Kenosha, but he requires so much care, constant care. And so my mom, when he was born in '96, she gave up her career. She was a working woman before that. She
Sure.
gave up her career in order to dedicate herself to Nick's medical needs. And so my dad was the one who was going out and working. And my mom loves being a stay-at-home mom.
Yep.
And she doesn't, there's nothing wrong with it.
There
And
isn't.
especially with my family and the medical circumstances that it required, we almost didn't have a choice. But she has really embraced the role of a stay-at-home mom and a stay-at-home
And it's a
parent.
real role.
Oh, it is.
It is not.
Yes.
It's not the lack of a role.
No.
And I think that it starts. And it doesn't matter. It could be a stay-at-home mother. It could be a stay-at-home father. I
Yes.
have a very good personal friend whose wife is a pediatrician. He's a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
Because he can.
Right.
But there is a parent who is in constant contact and constant involvement in their children's lives. And let's face it, raising children has become a full-time job.
It's not easy.
School has
Yeah.
changed.
Right.
The amount of focus needed to succeed has changed. Sports has changed.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. There's more and more demands on your students' time. There's more and more demands on your time as a parent.
Right.
And if you can afford to have one parent be a breadwinner and the other parent take charge of running a household and parenting,
Right.
I think that is probably still to this day the most ideal situation in which a child can grow up in this country. And if you can't afford to make that happen, and I understand that there are families that can't afford to make that happen, if that shouldn't stop you from starting a family.
Right.
But some mindfulness, some give and take, figuring out where the sacrifices are going to be. My wife is a teacher. I'm self-employed.
Right.
So I'm the one who can leave at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go pick my kids up from school and do some of those things. And they do have a little period where they have some aftercare, but they don't have to stay there till 5 o'clock every night.
Right.
It's unusual that they're there more than an hour.
Sure.
We're taking our kids to practice. We're coordinating things together. And it can be done with 2 working parents. But we're already talking about making the decision to have my wife stay home because it's a decision, not because my wife is uneducated or not able to do things. So this stigma that got put out there, I think needs to be eliminated.
Yeah. I think also it's important to realize that, this is coming from an outside perspective of somebody who isn't a parent, but that watching my parents, I've noticed that parenting is a balance. So when just because my mom is at home with us and she's a stay-at-home mom, it's a job, but that also doesn't mean that my dad isn't a parent to
Right.
us. You
Of
know what I
course.
mean? There's that balance there. And so we got to watch my mom be like a very hands-on parent, but we also got to watch my dad be very successful in his career and learn that ambition. But I think for people who have two working parents, it's also like a very similar balance. You know, you have to watch your parent, you know, manage a career and also manage a family. And so many families who have two working parents are very successful at that. And so I just think it's like important that we realize that parenting is just such a balance, and that there's no right or wrong way to do it, if that makes sense. And that it just depends on like the family.
That makes
the
perfect sense.
situation that you're in.
Yeah,
right?
that makes perfect sense. And I imagine, in a sense, having a child with special needs. Having a first child with special needs on top of it all must be a very scary thing, because you don't even have the lens to look at it of having raised children before, and now your first experience, your first everything is with a child who has special needs. I imagine that forced your parents to put more focus on parenting.
Yes, absolutely.
But not only did it force them to put more focus on parenting, it also forced them to accept less than ideal circumstances.
Oh yeah.
Because first-time parents, if they do put focus on parenting, then they're going to create this perfect environment for their child.
Right.
And then when their child steps out of that box that they've created for them, it becomes this interruption of their plan.
The ideal
situation.
Yeah.
I read a very good book called The Conscious Parent that I think everybody should read. Unfortunately, I didn't read it until I'd already been a parent for 16 years. That really talks about fostering your child's development as the best themselves they can be, as opposed to trying to make them into something, because at the end of the day, you can't.
Right.
You can't even you can raise your child with the values of your faith, which I have and I do, but you can't even guarantee that your child is going to keep that faith.
Right.
They're going to stay the same religion. That they are going to flourish in math and science, or they're going to flourish in Spanish, or they're going to flourish in music, or whatever it is that you start leading them to. So you have to lead them to lots of different things and pay attention to them and pay attention to what they are good at.
Right.
And I imagine that's amplified times 10. You can 10x all of that when you have a special needs child.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're sitting back and you're watching your child develop. And then when you find this glimmer of hope in a certain area, you're going to focus on that area. And that probably makes you a better parent if you accept that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times parenting is learning from your child as well.
Yes.
And being like just being open to your child's experiences and learning from them. So my mom, when she was like my age, she never wanted to get married or have kids, which is super funny because she's been married for almost 30 years and now has 4 kids. And yeah, so it's funny.
What was your mom's occupation before?
She worked in human resources at ADP in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah. And then she met my dad through some mutual friends from college. They both went to UW-Madison, but they didn't know each other at the time, and they had mutual friends, it turned out. And that's how she met my dad. And then she's like, oh, okay, I'll get married. You know, he's definitely worth it. So I could see myself with him. So they got married. And then they just lived, married, obviously, for 7 years. And then my mom, like one day she was at a party and she was like holding somebody's baby. Normally she like never did it, but her friend really needed her to like hold a baby at the time. And the baby was like sleeping in her arms.
And they're contagious, apparently, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And she was like, oh, okay. She's like, I could do this. Like one perfect kid like would be great. And she tells us, my mom's an inspirational speaker, so she tells the story wherever she goes. And then
your mom's an inspirational speaker.
Yes.
When can we have her on?
Oh,
Absolutely.
I'll let you know.
That's awesome.
But then Nick was born with CP. And in many people's eyes, he's far from perfect. I mean, not in our eyes. We think he's incredible.
Of course.
But, you know, there's obviously challenges there. And so right away, they had to reinvent that ideal situation that you were talking about, because Nick requires so much care. But they thought they were going to have to teach Nick so much in life. And at every turn, Nick has taught us so much more. I mean, just incredible lessons about perseverance and determination and work ethic, and he's one of the most positive people that I have ever met. And for a guy who can't walk and talk, you would think that he would be pretty angry at life, you know? But it
sure makes the rest of you have zero excuses, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, every time I think I'm having a bad day, I think about everything that Nick goes through on a day-to-day basis. I mean, waking up and knowing that the world is against you, it's crazy. And the fact that he gets up every day with a smile on his face and he's ready to take on the day, he's ready to face those challenges, my problems are so insignificant compared to that. And so that's given me such a good outlook on life. But that was something that he's taught us.
Now that's become a passion of yours,
Oh, absolutely.
working with kids with disabilities.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you're doing there.
Sure. So I actually created a Girl Scout patch for Girl Scouts in the area to earn, and we do like a seminar on how to recognize kids with disabilities, how to be accepting and inclusive of them. So my official platform title is See the Gift, Disability Acceptance and Inclusion. And that's because we want to see the gift of somebody who's special or different and has different abilities from us. Nick has come with me on most of my school visits, which is so awesome.
Really?
Yes, so we will walk in, and we do a lot of like grade school and middle school visits because that's such a formative age for these kids.
Yes.
So we'll walk in, and in Nick's case, roll in, and he'll come in, and it's quiet. Because for a lot of these kids, they haven't seen somebody who can't walk or can't talk, and Nick makes sounds, so, sounds that aren't words.
How does he communicate?
He communicates with his eyes,
Okay.
which is how we teach the kids that method of communication. So he looks this way to say yes, this way to say no, up in the air for I don't know, and then down at the ground if he wants you to repeat the question. So we teach the kids how to communicate with them, and we start with really simple questions, and we teach them how he does multiple choice by looking at different points in the room. And then these kids, we encourage them to ask questions, and we tell them right away that there's no question that you can't ask, and there's no question that we're going to feel offended by, because we want you to learn, and we want to create a culture of learning in that space for them. And especially kids sometimes can be worried about asking questions in a space that's unfamiliar for them, about like an unfamiliar topic.
I can imagine that being very scary to children who've never
Exactly.
experienced that before.
Right. And then,
Your brother sounds incredible. I'd like to meet him.
Yes, no, you should have him on. I think you would really enjoy it.
I would.
But it's funny because we watch this transformation. So these kids are so scared, and then they start to ask him questions. And once they realize that they have so much more in common with Nick than differences and they might perceive, they want to ask him everything. They want to know every little thing, like who he thinks is going to win the NBA Finals. What's his favorite ice cream flavor?
Wow.
Packers or Bears? Packers, of course. But like things like that, And so at the end, we teach the kids that you can't get a disability by touching somebody, which is really important.
Right.
And so at the end, they want to give them hugs, and they want to give them high fives. And we get letters all the time from classrooms that talk about the impact that Nick has made on their lives. And one of the teachers over at St. Joe's said that her 7, 8, and 9-year-old students said that Nick changed their lives at 7 years old, which is crazy for a 7-year-old to be using that terminology. It's just amazing. So we've done that with him.
I think the children of today are able to be more self-aware because so much more information is available to them.
Yeah.
In general. So I think the brain patterns, the thinking process has definitely evolved from
Right.
even 25, 30 years ago when I was a child, or
Yeah.
even
10 years ago
10
when I
years
was a
ago
child,
when you
yeah.
were a child. Absolutely.
Yeah, the questions that these kids ask are so advanced.
And you
so
think I
well
would have thought of a question
No,
that smart at that
as
age.
a 7-year-old, I wouldn't even know how to spell life-changing.
Right.
It's crazy. The
Yeah.
fact that they're using this terminology and asking such informed questions is amazing. So we get to do that with Nick, which is amazing. And then I wrote my senior thesis at Carthage about ways to improve the hiring of individuals with disabilities in the workplace. And so we actually got to go up to Governor Scott Walker's office and present that to his employment team, which was really, really great. And had a meeting up there, and we tried to bring a program to Kenosha. It's like a bridge the gap program almost for kids who are in high school and want to go into the workforce. It helps them with that transition. Unfortunately, the state was out of funding for it, which was a little bit disappointing, but fingers crossed for this year that we'll able to get that in there and bring it to Kenosha. But just the fact that Nick was able to go with me for that experience and present to these government employees, and then we were working on actual tangible change, was so rewarding. So he's been with me every step of the way, which has been great.
That is completely inspiring.
Thank you. He's the reason why I get out of bed in the morning, and he is the inspiration for my life. So
What are your future plans for what you're doing with children with disabilities?
So I want to bring that program to Kenosha primarily. Okay. So I'll be reaching out to the new governor's administration within the next couple of weeks here as I kind of getting settled in. But I also hope to work more with the Kenosha Achievement Center.
Okay.
They have a great program, especially in the summertime, for youth in the area who have disabilities, about like learning how to develop soft skills and resumes and things like that, and then actually going in and like testing the waters in like a job situation. So I would love to volunteer there at some point and really get the word out about all the programs that they're doing there for people with special needs in the Kenosha community. So
that's great. That's great stuff. Now I'm going to come full circle back to where we started, which is very cool.
Yes.
Because we started off talking about razors, and not really razors, but this toxic masculinity, and we talked about parenting, and that led us to your brother, which I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we covered that. And now we're coming full back circle to this entire notion that masculinity is toxic. And I think the problem isn't the commercial. I think the problem is people saying that masculinity is equal to bullying. And I see masculinity as absolutely the opposite of that. I think that being a man, being a woman too, but being an adult, okay, but I'm going to talk about being a man because this is what it's about, is teaching the men of the future, as they said, to be good human beings.
Yeah.
That is the definition of masculinity. So that commercial didn't put masculinity under attack. The culture warriors on both sides started a food fight over it, and they're saying that that masculinity is bad on one side, masculinity is good. Hey, you know what? There is nothing wrong, and still right now with identifying as a man, as a man's man, and that's somebody who's going to stick up for people that are less fortunate.
Yeah.
Stick up for people that need that help. Stick up for what's right. That is I think what needs to happen is we need to take that term back, masculinity, and say there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. That's called bullying. That's the opposite. That's not having parents. That's not having parenting. And when boys are growing up and they start to feel this personal power and they don't know how and where to apply it because they don't have a role model, then they become bullies. Because they're trying to try out this new power that they have, and they haven't been taught different. And so everybody needs to get a life. Everybody needs to realize it is really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. We just talked about things that are a big deal. The commercial, maybe it had some sort of underground political message, but I missed it, all right? All I saw was do the right thing. So I say don't take it and use it as a way to bash men. On the flip side, don't take it as I'm not offended by it because I've never been a bully. I've always taught kids along the way to do the right thing. I've had sons who didn't have fathers in their lives, or my sons have had friends who didn't have fathers in their lives, I should say, and I've always brought them with and taken them on wrestling trips or whatever we were doing, or had them over at my house for dinner, and I've always tried to be an influence on them as well. One of them is serving in the military right now, and he sent me this really nice message about how much that influence meant to him. Yeah. And so I think we're doing the right thing right now, and we need to give ourselves credit and realize that the very few people that aren't are the anomaly. You know, this Me Too movement has turned into a man-bashing festival at some points and times, when the truth is the overwhelming majority of boys, the overwhelming majority of young men, the overwhelming majority of adult men are not predators. They're not. Yes, there are boys who during their coming of age do stupid things and make bad decisions. I'm sure they grow beyond that and decide later on, wow, that was dumb. That's part of their coming of age. But overall, I think we're still a good people in this country.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that we need to focus on what's good and what holds us together instead of what breaks us apart. Right. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back from that break, we are going to talk about the finding of Jamie Kloss and the fact that she was found unhurt and what all that means. So stay tuned. We got one more segment of this episode of Get Real with Ralph, Nudi, and Maria Salerno.
No, I don't want to take her over.
Douglas County 911.
Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jamie Kloss.
Okay, what's your address?
It's in Gordon, Wisconsin.
Okay, have you seen her photo, ma'am?
Yes, it is her. I 100% think it is her.
Are you okay?
100%.
Does it look like she's going to run?
No, she's sitting down, she's relaxing.
Okay, hang on just a second.
We're back on Get Real with Ralph, and that audio that you just heard was the actual 911 call that was placed to the police when Jamie Kloss was found. Gosh, I have no idea what that girl went through.
No.
But I have to say that in spite of everything she went through, what a brilliant, smart girl to not only get herself free, but to able to, at that age, process what was going on around her, learn names, figure out where she was, give enough information that they were able to apprehend her captor in a very short period of time while he was apparently actually out looking for her, which is just... I just can't even believe that kind of evil absolutely exists out there.
No, and I think I have taken not like an interest in this case, but it's really hit home for me, and I think it's hit home for a lot of people.
Sure,
Honestly.
this isn't inner city Chicago. This isn't even inner city Kenosha or Milwaukee. This is out in the middle of
nowhere,
a rural town where this Patterson character, obviously a psychopath, decided that he wanted to possess somebody's child, planned out an attack, shaved his head so that he wouldn't leave any DNA evidence behind, carefully, methodically plotted it out, knew that he couldn't leave any witnesses based on his interview with the police, came in, assassinated a mother and a father, and then walked out with a child in his possession as if she was going to just be his property for the rest of his life to do with what he pleased.
Right. I think especially the part when he said that it was just him watching her get on a school bus one day. Like, he didn't know her. He just drove past and watched her get on a school bus, and he said that that's how he knew that she was going to be the girl that he took. That's horrifying to me, because I remember, you get on a school bus every single day when you're in grade school and high
all this
school.
worrying we do, and I'm not saying the worrying is unfounded, but all this worrying we do about keep your kids off social media, make sure people don't know who your kids are, have this level of anonymity. And here is a family living in rural America, rural Wisconsin, and it was as simple, like you said, as he saw her get on a school bus. So none of that came into play at the end of the day. People thought that it may have, because she had access to a smartphone, and there was a lot of speculation before she was found that somehow she was involved, because people say mean things, and I hate when people jump to conclusions. Because there was no conclusion to jump to other than this is a horrifying experience for her.
Yeah.
She no longer has her parents with her.
Right.
I'm sure has had unimaginable things happen to her from the time she was taken to the time that she escaped. And yet she managed to gather up the strength as a human being to not only escape, but provide enough information for the swift apprehension of the man that is responsible for killing both of her parents.
She watched both of her parents die in front of her. I can't even imagine how terrified she was to even think about escaping and the consequences of if he had caught her. And the fact that she did it.
I think the consequences for her were she could die.
Right.
And so what?
Right. Yeah.
At that point, because I'd rather be dead than live that existence. And I imagine that something along the lines of that had to have registered in her young mind.
Yes.
That there is, if there's any way to get away. And then to think that he was driving around looking for her.
Yeah, he said he saw like the footprints in the snow because she stole his shoes. Because he took like all of her clothes and like burned them or whatever. And so then she like took his shoes, and then he saw like the footprints in the snow, and he said he knew right away that she was gone and that he had to start looking for her. It's horrifying. And then I think he also told the police too that he had like planned it out so meticulously that if he like hadn't like messed up by allowing her to get away or whatever, they never would have found her. It's just
And
unfathomable to me that somebody can think that way about another human being.
it shocks me to the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it should shock everybody to the
Yeah.
core. And here's the thing. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Evil exists.
Right.
You have to. There's not. Has to pass a law. There is no, and that's always the answer. Is there ought to be a law. There ought to be a system. Evil exists.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge that evil exists. You have to be aware of it. You have to be vigilant. You have to arm yourselves, and I don't just mean with weapons, although I do think that citizens arming themselves with weapons in general is a good thing. Obviously, we're not going to have 13-year-olds getting on a bus with a handgun. I'm not saying that. But you have to arm yourself with information.
Yeah.
You have to arm yourself with knowledge. You have to arm yourself physically in some cases, and you have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
Because this sort of thing can happen to anybody's child, anybody's sister, anybody's I've got 6 children. I think about that every day, the safety of my children. I drop them off at the door at school, and when I go in to pick them up and I get buzzed in, I always think about, is this safe enough?
Yeah.
Is this truly safe enough?
Yeah.
If somebody wanted, and at the end of the day, it's out of our hands if somebody truly wants to do something like that. They'll find a way.
Yeah, because we don't have control over another person.
You can't control other people's behavior. You can't control the fact that evil exists. So acknowledging it exists and being vigilant and talking to people, talking to your kids.
Having a conversation about
Having a conversation. But even all of that, he didn't snatch her off the side of the road.
No.
He
went into her
He
house.
shot their door open.
Yeah. I can't even
It's a
comprehend.
It's a 1 in a million thing.
Yeah.
It really is. We could live our lives building walls up around our houses and have security cameras everywhere and live our lives that way, but then they've won also.
Yeah.
The very few evil people in this world.
Right.
I don't know what the answer is. I hope they get a lot of answers from this monster
Yes.
before they put him away for the rest of his natural life. It's Wisconsin, so unfortunately there is no death penalty. And I say unfortunately because I just don't understand. Once you've gotten all the information, I don't understand the point of keeping a monster like that alive. It's I'll be on word. I'm normally not a person who doesn't have anything to say.
Yeah.
But this, the flip side is the thing I have to say is so thankful that the silver lining is that this girl is a survivor.
Absolutely.
And hopefully she can heal as a human being.
Yes.
And go on and live a normal, productive life. And that her parents' memory is something that will keep her going for the rest of her life.
Right. And I also hope, I think it's important that we're respectful of her and her privacy.
Absolutely.
But I also think this is something that we need to remember, and that it's not something that should be forgotten that this happened, and that the ordeal, the traumatic ordeal that this girl went through, and how smart she was to escape.
And know his name and know where he was.
She knew his middle name and the
knew his
911
middle
call.
name.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's something that we should not forget and continue to remember and have an open discussion about, especially with kids.
I mean, this isn't the first time this has happened. I remember the story of J.C. Dugard and them finding her in that makeshift shack or whatever you call it behind their house, and how they had their entire backyard camouflaged so you couldn't tell what was going on there. And she was able to escape. And I believe she gives speeches now, and she's, you said... I
think she's a book.
Yeah, a book, yeah. And this has gone on since the beginning of civilization, that there are people out there who are just broken. And they will go and harm innocent people for absolutely no reason. This has always been part of our history. It always will be. It's something in their DNA that didn't line up right before they were born.
Yeah.
And the only thing we can really do is be aware, pray, and be vigilant.
Yes.
Be very vigilant. Did you ever see the special where they bring the puppies around and they see how many kids will go with them?
No.
Scary video. I think it was, I want to say 20/20 or 60 Minutes or one of those shows. And they had the parents' permission ahead of time to say, do you think your child will go with a stranger if they're playing in a park? And they have a guy or they have a lady come up with puppies. Oh, do you like the puppies? You want to come see? I have more in my car. Will you come with me? And the number of 6 to 9-year-old children that would go with was mind-blowing as the overwhelming majority of them.
Yeah.
And these parents were absolutely stunned because they had thought they had taught their children better.
I saw one, like a 60 Minutes or a 20/20, and it was like a food truck.
Yeah.
And or an ice cream truck, and kids who would, it was a test obviously, and the parents had permission, and all these parents thought that their kids wouldn't go in the ice cream truck if somebody offered them free ice cream.
I mean, we had an ice cream truck coming through. We had an ice cream truck that used to come through our neighborhood, and I gotta say, the guy was kind of creepy and scary.
Yeah.
And the kids would get all excited, be like, "I don't want you talking to him. If the ice cream truck comes, you can let me know.
I'll go
come buy ice cream with you. I don't care if it's an ice cream truck. Even the ice cream truck, I've told them that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I almost ripped the guy's head off verbally because he went flying down our little residential road cul-de-sac at about 40 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I came out there and I flagged him down. And he's like, "What can I get you?" I said, "Well,
Get you some common sense."
You took the words out of my mouth. I said, "You can get me some sense about." I think it's a sense about you. I said, "Do you really want to sell ice cream in my neighborhood after driving 45 miles an hour down the road where you're going to kill somebody's kid?"
Kids around, yeah.
Yeah. What is wrong with you? I says, "If you ever come down my neighborhood again, I promise you will never sell ice cream in this town again. I will make sure every single person that I know, every single connection I have, knows about you and who you are, and you'll get pulled over every block."
You're a force to be reckoned with. I hope I'm never on your bad list.
Don't hurt kids.
Well, done.
Consider
it done.
Don't be a bad person to other people. That's all it is. It's we should all be forces to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
You just have to dig your feet in and stand up for what's right.
Absolutely.
Current Miss Kenosha, Maria Salerno, and she will continue to be Miss Kenosha for less than a month. She's giving her crown up on February 9th at the Miss Kenosha pageant being held at St. Joseph's Academy in Kenosha. You excited about giving it away?
It's bittersweet, but I'm excited for the next girl to wear the crown, absolutely.
What advice do you have for the next girl wearing the crown?
To make the most of the experience and to really get out there with your platform, make a difference in the community, make the most of the 12 months that you have this crown, because it's really once in a lifetime that you get to have this opportunity and go on to compete at Miss Wisconsin. I mean, girls do it year after year, but I think it's just such a special time for you to be able to serve the city that you love and that you're living in, and I think that's really important. So.
That's awesome. So in an ideal world, after you give the crown up and you're graduating, which we talked about, what would the future hold for Maria Salerno if you could do whatever you want? Would you prefer a life in arts and entertainment and being a public figure, or would you prefer a life in a more traditional career path? Or have you given thought to that?
I mean, I would like a life, I guess, as a public figure, so I'm able to continue my work in the community and have a bigger voice to speak out about people with disabilities and an issue that's so close to my heart. But I also wouldn't mind the traditional career path, and that's kind of what I'm going to pursue right away after graduation. I'll eventually go and get my MBA or my JD at some point. But yeah, so I guess I don't really know what the future holds for me, which is a little bit scary, but I'm trying to be open to as many new opportunities as possible and not really limit myself or have blinders on, and be open to whatever comes my way.
Well, you're going to have to go back and watch my episode 7 because we talk about mindset with Karen Bird, who is a hypnosis therapist. And let me tell you something now that I have learned through years and years and years, the power of getting clear on what you want and building that and then living it in your mind as if it's actually happening now, the power of that visualization. My advice to you is if you can learn to do that, use that power of visualization, get clear on what you want, what you'll find is that you'll get blown off course lots of times, but if you stay focused on that vision, somehow things will come full circle and you'll end up being what you had visualized yourself being.
Yeah.
It won't be when you visualize it happening necessarily, but it'll happen for you. And you said something about being worthy of being a voice. I can tell you, you are worthy of having that voice.
Well, thank you.
I really like you as a
Thank
person,
you.
and
The
I like
feeling's
your,
mutual.
I like your message, and I like what you're trying to do. And I'm a fan. I am rooting openly for your success.
Thank you.
And I know that you are going to meet with great success when the time comes.
I appreciate
Maria,
it.
thank you very much for being a guest.
Thank you, Ralph.
That's an amazing handshake, by the way.
My dad taught me well.
He did. Your dad taught you well. And thank you for being a guest. Please come back again.
I will.
We'll do some serious stuff. We'll do some fun little skits. In fact, you're a singer.
Yes.
So we'll have to get you in the car and get you doing some music
Little
with us.
carpool
I
karaoke.
can't wait to hear you sing. And thank all of you for tuning in to Get Real with Ralph. Thanks.